Okay.
So is there anything I do? It's like, hey, no?
You can.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Soph podcast. I'm your host, Sophie Wade, and this is my podcast for ordinary people with extraordinary impacts. And today on my podcast, we have a very special guest since Father's Day will be 2 days after this comes out, and the day it comes out will be Juneteenth. And since you're Black, you made the cut for this. Today, we have my dad on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, an honor to be here. This is so cool. I've been looking forward to this.
My dad is an entrepreneur, a life coach, a speaker, and someone who I get my loud laughter from. And from your workshops on uncovering limiting beliefs to you listening to my crash outs at 9 p.m. in the room, you are the perfect person to go to for advice for navigating big emotions and breaking patterns. And so, in honor of Father's Day and celebrating Juneteenth, I wanted to invite you on the podcast for the special episode since I never had anyone on the family on the podcast besides Megan, which that's the only representation of our family. So decided to bring on one more person. So thank you for coming.
Oh, it's a very honor to be. I literally canceled whatever meeting that I had so I could be here. Very
Thank
proud of
you.
what you're doing. I am just floored, so I can't wait.
The topics that we're going to be getting into today is mainly about relational boundaries
Great.
because we haven't talked about boundaries a lot on here. And I feel like you got a lot of good knowledge on boundaries, especially like relationally, whether that's like within friendships, within family, within faith. And so I wanted to tap into all those areas. And then I also wanted to talk about boundaries as people who are like empathetic or feel their emotions very deeply,
Awesome.
because I feel like that is the hardest thing, even harder to like put them into practice when you're like that.
Boundaries are extremely important. In my line of work, I've seen a lot of leaders, a lot of people, from parents for children. Like, it doesn't matter. They get burnt out really bad, and people get into the wrong relationship because of their lack of boundaries. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm actually not from here. I'm from the central part of Africa, the Congo. I know you couldn't tell, right? But I was born and raised there. I came from a very dysfunctional family. I was abused by my father, and I had an alcoholic mother. So talk about my first impression of boundaries was violation of boundaries. So that's what I grew up with. And then I came here when I was 12 years old. My mother died when I was 13. So when she died, it just broke me. So I was grieving, and then I was just looking to filter all these emotions through people. So I got into the wrong crowd, and at 21, I became a Christian at 21, and then at 25, I got married. And then, you guys came along 2 years later. But I always served as a in our church. And then I created my own business. I created a business because actually how I started is people came to me always asking me for advice, and I was working in real estate. So I didn't have any more time. So what they asked me to do is, hey, could you get more time? And I'm like, well, I can't. And they said, what if we paid you? And they paid me. So that was my first reason why I started doing coaching. I created a pattern breaking workshop. It's like a 5-day workshop where we take you from your birth of your pattern. And a pattern is 4 things. It's your pain from where you come from. It's the person that you attract to edify that pain. And it's a problem that you keep repeating. And it's the process on how you deal with your grief and life. So I break those down in 5 days. And that's called Uncover Limiting Belief Challenge.
Yeah.
And you've been in it because you've helped me with it.
I have. I was behind the scenes helping on the laptop, so I got to hear different people's stories. And yeah, I was like, wow, like a lot of people really did open up with you very easily about their lives. And I feel like it's sometimes hard to find that with people where you feel safe enough to share your deepest feelings or like your deepest traumas. And so I think that's very inspiring that you do that regularly. And I'm sure that also requires having boundaries as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So curious. I mean, you already talked about this a little bit, that you've broken kind of a lot of generational curses to get to where you are today. And so I was wondering um, how you have learned to continue to like keep those boundaries in place when it comes to family and like acting on like who you've become today instead of going back to those old patterns.
Absolutely. I think family, starting at home,
Hmm.
I had to respect you guys' boundaries. Before I came from parents that controlled, it was the iron fist. I probably started off that way with you guys, and then,
Hmm.
and then I start to learn. There's actually a really good book. It's called Boundaries.
Hmm.
But anyways, I read that book over and over because I didn't
Hmm.
even know that boundaries. I didn't know about boundaries. All I did know is like people take advantage of me, and I don't know what to do. So when I learned about boundaries, then I was like, okay, so how do you even set boundaries? I easily attracted. There's four different types of people that I talk about attracting: either a vampire, a victim. A vampire takes the life out of you.
Hmm.
They suck the blood out of you emotionally. A
Yeah.
vampire, a vacuum sucks everything. They treat you like dirt, like a narcissistic person.
Hmm.
And a victim needs a rescuer. So I did all of the above. So after failing several times and being burnt out,
Hmm.
I started to create just a space between me and them. And I
Yeah.
have a script of what to say, how to say it, and everything. And I even have different files of some people that I have to go back and look at. Oh, wow, what was my
Oh yeah,
boundaries
I
with
was
these
surprised at
people?
that. That's actually really smart. Sometimes I forget in
Me
the
too.
moment when I have a good moment with them. I'm like, well, you know, it's not that bad. But no, it was.
I had a friend that was part of my team. As you know, I'm a business. I got a lot of team, and they didn't. They we had an issue before, and I told them we went over all our boundaries before, and they said, "Well, I'm going to take some time to think
Yeah.
about it." 6 months later, they pop back up, and I'm ready to be a part of your team, and I'm going. And I forgot what the boundaries was, and I'm like, but
Yeah.
my heart was feeling it. I was
Hmm.
like, you know how you feel it, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, let me look that up. And then I found out what they were. So I reminded them of that.
Yeah.
But what they said is like, I feel like you don't want me to be back of your team. And then you go back to the same pattern, right?
Yeah.
So with family is really hard because you have that pull, but you also have to have actually even stronger boundary with family because that's where your boundary foundation was formed. So with family, you do need to have compassion, but you also have to realize that compassion is putting boundaries. Because if
Yeah.
you get burnt out, you will resent them.
That's true. And I felt that before. I'm like refusing to communicate a lot of
Right.
things, and that's what's creating that tension. But it's
Mm.
always uncomfortable sometimes to do that. But like, I like what you mentioned about the script. That's something I also learned in therapy
Mm.
because I used to just think I'm gonna just think of my things I'm gonna say off of the dome,
Right.
but then I started writing down my journal like this is what I want to say. These are like the expectations that I hope to have out of this relationship. This is what has come up for me,
Yeah.
and like that really helped me to say it.
Yeah.
And I've done it before. I had just read off the paper, and I'm sure that those people could tell, and they're like, but I had to do what I had to do. So,
Right.
yeah,
Well, and there's also one thing that we need when you're setting boundaries, you need to also prepare for the reaction. When you set boundaries, it triggers people to remind themselves that, hey, he's abandoning me or she's abandoning me. Oh, it
yeah,
reminds me of my past. It reminds me of when I was abandoned as a child. So when you set boundaries, you trigger childhood wounds from the other people. So they
yeah,
don't even know it.
hmm,
And if they haven't set a boundary, they're going to react like you're leaving them, that you're hurting them, or they did something wrong. So
hmm,
I know that. So when somebody does that, I'm like, okay, this is not me. They're projecting on me. So you definitely want to prepare for that. That's
yeah.
a major thing,
That's true. There's
right?
been so many times where I was caught off guard. I was
Right?
like, forget everything I said. Everything you thought of feels invalid in that moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I always say three things. Boundaries needs to be communicated, and it has to be honest,
Hmm.
right? And you have to have a consequence. A boundary without a consequence is just a wish. So you communicate honestly. You
Hmm.
make sure that you have the consequences because a boundary without consequences it's really manipulation because you're
Yeah.
not really setting everything. You're reading you're trying to have somebody read your mind. It's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you also have to consider the what do you call it? The lesson that you're teaching them because when you're
Yeah.
setting boundaries, you're teaching them to actually what it feels like, looks like to set boundaries. Probably nobody in their life might have set their boundaries, right?
Yeah.
And then you're learning too, because you're getting stronger.
Yeah.
Saying no is hard, right? But the more you say it, or yes, I always say this: if you say an authentic no, that means it gives room to your authentic yes. Because
Yeah.
if you say yes to somebody, you're saying no to the, like, say you say yes to somebody that's dysfunctional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not setting boundaries. That means you're saying no to the functional people coming in your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that made me think of the one of the next questions, which is about like when you feel like you're becoming a therapist for somebody. And I've been there. And I think that I attract people who are very like they love to trauma dump,
Mm,
which I will listen to people's trauma and deep stuff they're going through because I
yeah,
get that life is very hard and
yeah,
that's something that I wanted to have when I was going through my deepest stuff.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, I was curious of what you think has helped you the most in making boundaries
yeah.
in specifically friendships when it comes to that scenario of feeling like you are more of a therapist than a friend.
It hurts them when I'm doing that. I'm
Hmm.
creating a vase for them to dump all their emotions, but they're never going to the root. And if you say no, they're going to go to somebody else. That's
Yeah.
why I define three people: the vampire, the victim, and the vacuum.
Hmm.
So, but a vampire needs a rescuer. So if I have that spirit that want to rescue people, I will attract vampires. So in my relationships, I break it down into three different relationships. There's my
Hmm.
core circle. There's only maybe three or four people there that I could give access to me. I don't give access to my grief and my life to everyone,
Hmm.
right? So that's one. The second is my companion, the people that kind of, a little bit bigger crowd. And those one, they're okay, And then there's the bigger crowd, like the big community. But
Yeah.
each of them, I make sure that I review the boundaries. Is this person really a part of my core circle? Because you know your people,
Yeah.
and you know your people because you don't feel like you have a job after you get off the phone,
Hmm.
right? And I usually limit my time. When I started to limit my time, that's a boundary, by the way.
Hmm.
My time became more valuable, and I had more energy.
Yeah, it's important to have those boundaries with friends as well so you can maintain the quality of the friendship and not
Yeah,
grow resentful like we are
yeah,
talking about before. And that's
yeah.
something I've learned. And then I'd be like, oh, they must not have no one else to talk to. And then I
Mm,
would feel so bad if like I was like actually I was starting to see it was unhealthy.
yeah,
But then every single time
yeah.
that I took that step back, they always found somebody else to talk to. I'm like, some
Right.
people, they just want to hear themselves talk or they just want to get it out and they
Yeah,
don't care who it is. Some people, they specifically care about you listening. So
yeah.
I've learned that as well.
Yeah, and I ask people, do you want me to give you feedback,
Hmm.
or do you want me to just listen to you? And if you do want me to listen to you, I have X amount of time, you know?
Yeah.
And I always, like, if you tell them you have a certain amount of time, they most likely, if that violated your boundary before, they're not going to hear it.
Yeah.
So you have to get off the phone. Because if you don't, then you taught them that you don't respect your time. But some people are really like you're good with emotions, sitting there listening, which attracts a lot of people that are not emotionally healed.
Yeah.
They want to give you the emotions. Like I said, babysit. Like, I want to give you my emotions. I don't want to work on it. I just want to babysit. Like, please do that.
Hmm.
You get to get paid to babysit somebody's emotions.
I do. This always has me thinking I should have been a therapist. It's not too late,
It's
but
not too late. It's
dang.
not too late.
I did go through hell to get that film degree. So now I'm like, can anyone please hire me? I'm trying to use this degree, but it's fine. But yeah, thank you for sharing that though. That's
Yeah.
helpful. I feel like that could just apply to the other areas of like faith and stuff in church. I know
Oh yeah.
people can get scared of that, but when I think of that, I think of with like other disciples because sometimes in
Hmm.
my head I'll think it's not loving to say no to this person
Right.
who's asking me to do something because then it feels like I'm saying no to God. That's another place I feel challenged.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think I've seen it because I coach church leaders and I coach
Hmm.
congregations and all that. And what I have seen is people think that serving with no limit is godliness.
Yeah.
No, servant with no limit is foolishness. even Jesus, for our faith, he had limits.
Yeah.
He withdrew, like, and he told the crowd to go away. And he taught his disciple, hey, let's go somewhere else. He constantly withdrew. And he spoke his mind, right? So if we could look at him, he had boundaries.
Yeah.
So I think that at church, people, again, from childhood trauma, if you are the rescuer or you're the child that likes to control everything or absorb everything, you would want to go look for people to rescue. And there's plenty of people to rescue at church. Oh, a
Yeah.
bunch of them, but anywhere, not just church. So I think that if you are one of those people, you have to look at the end result, the fruits of your rescuing or the fruit of your serving. If you're serving with resentment, that is not righteousness.
Yeah.
Because eventually you're going to resent the people you serve and you're going to walk away from that congregation anyway, thinking you're invisible. And that comes from you not feeling seen, maybe growing up. You know what I mean? So, and those are where you got to have boundaries. I had people put boundaries in and they got, they got hurt or the leadership did something with them. But I say, hey, do you want your sanity or do you want to just look spiritual?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's the biggest thing. How people perceive you. That's what I cared
Yeah.
about.
There you go.
Especially when I was in college. They would like always encourage us to be very involved and take
Yeah.
on multiple roles. And it was just a normal thing
Yeah.
in like the campus ministry.
Yeah.
But I would sometimes get really burnt out because I was doing school and all that stuff. And I was just, my mental health wasn't great either. But I was like, I'm on fire for God. And I felt so guilty the first time I told them like I couldn't serve in the children's ministry. But I remember I sent a text and I was like, this is affecting my actual relationship with God. Me missing Sundays for 2 months in a row
There you go.
while I'm like struggling. I'm
There you
like,
go.
can anybody else do it?
Yeah.
And it didn't crumble after that experience.
Yeah.
That felt like me advocating for my relationship with God. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because that's the last thing God wants is a burnt out child.
And Jesus had boundaries.
Yes, he did.
So. People who know me in real life know that I cry all the time. I cried yesterday. I cried the day before that. And I cried the day before that. Because I feel things very deeply.
Yeah.
And I would just cry. But I also love people very deeply. That's what I learned. And so for you as being someone who feels your emotions deeply, I was wondering, what do you feel like is something you've learned is a strength about yourself that maybe you saw as a burden at first, but then you realized is actually a gift from God?
That's a great question. A very good question. Yeah, as I shared before, the trauma growing up in a dysfunctional family and all the abuse that was going on, I learned not to talk, not to feel, and I learned not to trust my emotions. So all I learned to do is to suppress it. And they were really scary especially if you suppress your emotion for a long, long, long time, and when I was a gangster growing up, when I was 16, 17, and 18, boys don't cry, you don't have to be against, that's some of the myths out there, like boys don't cry. As I was going through my own recovery and as I was learning about what an emotion is and it's okay. So they were a burden before because I just didn't know how to deal with them. As soon as I learned to deal with them and I learned that crying was okay, and as our faith, there's 2 scriptures, the shortest scriptures, Jesus wept and rejoice always. Isn't that interesting, though?
Yeah.
Jesus talk about weeping, grieving, and then it says rejoice. So what I learned is that grief and tears are connected to the joy that you have. That means you can be as joyful if you're not connected to your emotions. And what happens in our world right now, the problem is that most people don't feel, they medicate. So the fact that you're feeling your feelings, that's what the world needs.
Yeah.
To feel your feelings. And I realized that that's what makes me good at what I do. I could tell what people feel before they even say anything because I'm in it.
Yeah.
I think that's the same thing for you, is that we feel deeply because I love what you said. You love deeply.
Yeah.
You can't have compassion without feeling your feelings.
Yeah.
If you don't feel your pain, how am I going to feel somebody else's pain?
What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. I was like thinking about when I was talking to you the other day. We're just talking about like grief. And I remember I didn't know how to put it into words.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sad. But I was like, I don't know why. And then you were like, I think you're grieving this. And then I was like, wait, yeah. And you
Mm,
put it like exactly into words. But
mm,
I could tell it's something that you can understand because you've been through it
yeah,
yourself. So I
yeah.
appreciate, having that as well.
Well, and what helps me too, Sophie, which is something you do a lot, and I really believe is journaling.
Oh, yeah. I
So
like
because
journaling.
when you journal, you take your emotions and you put it into words.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
that's where you could communicate with somebody else. Like, it's easier for me to communicate with your emotion, like, because I know how you feel. But when you ask me, I feel sad, angry. I don't know, right?
Yeah.
So it's easier for me to look at you and dissect you
Hmm.
than me dissecting me. That's what we
Yeah.
all need support, right?
Yeah, that's why you
So
always need someone else to listen.
absolutely.
And how long have you been a grief recovery specialist?
About 20, over 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, you have been doing that since I was a kid.
Yeah,
I remember,
before you were born.
and I remember I would see the book and I was like, what the heck is this? Then I understood real quick what it meant. I was like, that's
You
crazy.
went through the same course, right? Okay,
I did,
that was
yeah.
good. And
Which
that's
was
great,
crazy.
isn't
Yeah.
it?
Hmm.
You and your friend.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we have both gone through our experiences with the grief, like when it comes to losing people.
Yeah.
I talked about that with my friend Alexia briefly on here. If you can think about a specific experience you've had with grief in the past, like what stood out to you about someone who you felt safe enough to walk alongside you through that
Yes.
healing journey?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
That's a great question because when you're walking through that healing journey, you do not want people that correct you, shame you, right? Or
Hmm.
try to take it from you, saying, well, I feel this too. It's like, hello. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, as you know, Ade is one of my best friends.
Hmm.
And I remember when I think, well, I can't remember what it was my dad, when my dad died. I was feeling everything. I was feeling angry. I was feeling sad.
Hmm.
And he told me something. He says, it's okay to feel everything.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's not going to make sense. Sometimes it is going to make sense. So he didn't judge it or categorize it, which is key. So, and I think that is suffering alongside, which is the definition of compassion, suffering alongside. So he was with me, heard me, but didn't judge me, and he was just there, a listening ear, not a correcting ear. So I
Yeah.
think that's what I would highly recommend. Like, be careful who you open with, who you agree with. I got my people to grieve with. I don't. There's some people I'm like, no way, I'm not gonna grieve over here.
Yeah.
And then you start to learn that not everybody is capable of carrying your grief.
Yeah.
You want somebody that is going to be with you, hear you, not correct you, um, and that you feel more energized after you leave them versus more drained.
Yeah. Definitely. I always like that feeling after always sticks out with me, like how I felt after opening up to them. If I felt like I was trying to be fixed,
Yeah.
like that's when I feel like,
Mm,
oh
trying to
man,
be
I
fixed.
just wanted to tell you about that. So I that kind of brings me back to what you were talking about before, like communicating
Mm,
what is most helpful for you in the moment. When I was grieving Daniela,
mm,
I think that like something that stood out to me was just being able to share about her and like the
mm,
memories we shared. I think that was nice, like just to do that,
mm.
because it was good to talk about my emotions, but I
Yeah,
think it also brought me back to like, oh, there's good times to cherish.
yeah,
It's not all like heartbreak.
yeah.
And I think the things that made me feel unsafe was like when people were kind of waiting for me to get back to my normal self, and
Wow,
I learned that like that I'm not gonna ever go back to who I was before she
wow,
passed away,
wow,
and my life was like a new normal.
wow.
And I think that's the most uncomfortable part for other people, like watching you be
Mm,
sad, maybe watching you be like, I can't come out as much as I did, or you're
yeah,
always bringing this up.
wow.
But I feel like something my friend told me the other day is like when you're going through grief and you're changing, she
Mm-hmm.
was like, I think it makes you a more interesting person. You have more depth to you,
Oh yeah,
you have more
absolutely.
experience, like,
Yeah.
and so that's something that I feel like reminds me that it's good to have people that will make me feel safe enough to share like the good parts and the bad parts. They're willing to grow with me
That's good.
until I get to the other side. I'm not going to feel like I got left behind because I'm too sad. I got left
Wow.
behind because I'm too emotional. So
Wow.
I appreciate those people. And those people have stuck with me and they're still in my life.
Great, you articulated like better than I did. That was awesome. I'm gonna take some notes. No,
Thank
that was
you.
good. That was really good. That's true. Everything you
Mhm.
just said, because grief does change you.
Thank you. And yeah, I feel like I've learned a lot from you about grief as well because
Mm,
you've lost like a lot of friends in
true.
your lifetime. Like I wasn't there when you lost your dad, but I
Yeah.
was there when you've lost friends and stuff. And so I feel like you are very honest about when you're like, I'm feeling sad or this is
Mm,
very tough or this is how grief affects me. And
mm-hmm.
it helps me to feel more safe to be like, oh yeah, I still feel this, even if
Yeah.
it's been years or if something is fresh
Yeah.
or even if it can seem so little,
Yeah.
like I feel like you still honor that. And even if someone else's grief reminds me of my own trauma, you're like,
Mm.
this is probably why this is triggering you. And you're not like, why? Why are you crying? Why? This
Okay.
is the last
Okay.
question.
Okay.
So this is a tradition that we do at the end of every episode
Mm.
where my guests and I will tell each other what we think is one thing that we think we need to hear based on our conversation today that we think
Oh,
we don't hear enough. So
oh.
something for you, and then you can say something for me.
It's okay to not be strong.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it. It's like it's okay to not be strong, and your tears are very powerful. I was in a meeting today with other guys,
Yeah.
and it was this big muscle guy. He was sitting next to me, and I cried most of the meet like you. I cried like I'm surprised you didn't cry just yet. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? We both cry, or you got that from me.
Yeah.
You get that from mama.
Mm-hmm.
But I was sitting next to this guy, and he shared about the wound, the father wound. It was really deep, and he was crying.
Mm-hmm.
And afterwards, he says, I don't like it when I do that. I says, no, you look around, people are going to come to you because you felt safe. So I would say to you or to anybody, um, you don't have to be strong because, and you don't have to be in a place where it's unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And make sure that you get your community together. You
Yeah.
deserve to receive healing, love, and especially when we're the one serving all the time or giving, we don't think that receiving the love, receiving the rest is actually giving.
Mm-hmm.
That's giving. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes the best thing you could do spiritually is the rest.
Thank you.
You're very
I
welcome.
appreciate it. And I need to hear that. So I receive it. And I would say for you, I think that I'm just very grateful to have you as a dad. I just appreciate you always being willing to show up for me in every era I've had from when I had like my little camera at home. You're like,
Yeah, doggy touch.
yo, to now, I've really appreciated it, and it makes me feel like very loved
Mm,
and like I can like this stuff is still important, and
mm,
everything that you're doing is very important too, and you've
mm.
changed a lot of lives, and that inspires me too to be like I have that in my family. Like I
Let's
can do
go.
this too. I can speak in front of a crowd. 'Cause,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's a
thanks.
generational pattern breaking from
Hmm.
where I come from. So for me, I'm successful at different things,
Hmm.
but I tell people all the time, my success is how I treat you and how I treat
Hmm.
my family. Everything else, there's no, because people get caught up with the public. So the
Yeah.
fact that you're able to break that generational pattern for you, I'm like, wow, I can't, like your life is completely shifted. So I just appreciate you like doing this. This is amazing. You have a gift.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So
Thank
you're
you.
very welcome.
I appreciate it. And thank you for being on the podcast today. I know we got to talk about a lot of great things.
Yeah, it's great.
And I hope that you guys also learned a lot too. But thank you for being very vulnerable about your past, your family, your relationships now. And thank you for making the time to be here. If there was anything that you wanted to shout out for people to come to, you can let us know.
Oh, there is my website. Actually, I'll just give you my website.
Yeah.
Is www.mickeyway.com. So if you go there, then you'll see the next challenge that I'm doing. You'll see everything. So and then be a part of my newsletter, and then you'll see. And I'm on Facebook as well, and the other
Yes.
stuff like the Instagram. See, I'm old school.
Yeah,
So
I will add it all. You can follow the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. It'll be and Soph everywhere. There'll be new episodes every other Friday. And if you want to follow on social media, that's where I like to talk in between my podcast episodes, connect with people, ask questions. It'll be Instagram is at @AndSophPod and TikTok is at @AndSoph. But thank you again for being here, and we'll see you guys in the next podcast episode.
you guys, bye.
Bye. Okay.
Great. We did it. We did it.